Our speaker is a member of the family. He needs no introduction. I don't want to take up a lot of his time, but Dr. Therman E. Evans has an extensive and impressive background. Yes, he is the founder and CEO of Whole Life Associates. He is a graduate of Howard University. Yes, former vice president and corporate medical director for Cigna Insurance and Healthcare. He's the national healthcare director of the bureau chief of Operation Push. He is a writer, he's a speaker, he is a pastor, and with no further ado, I introduce to some and present to others the Reverend Dr. Therman E. Evans.
We honor God this morning, and we pay our respects to the founder, the Honorable Johnny Coleman. I want to pay my respects to my longtime good friend, Sister Carrie. I believe she's here somewhere, Sister Helen Carey. Yes. And I especially want to pay my respects to the current leader here at Christ Universal Temple, Pastor Derek Wells. We honor you. Yes. This music, this morning, I told Pastor Wells that I could have listened to that and gone back home and been completely full, because these off the I don't know if is it the chart or the chain? Both. They're off both of them. The charts and the chain, and then the extra added attraction of dimensions is just an awesome thing. We're so pleased to be here. It's been a while. We want to spend a couple of minutes talking about how do you push through fear to your goals. How do you push through fear to your goals? I was one of the seven or eight people who went to see the movie After Earth. Will Smith, who started a movie with his son Jaden Smith, he said that was his worst failure. That's the way he described the movie. He described it that way. And so I happened to be one of the 7 or 8 people who went to see it. And frankly, except for one thing, he wasn't too far from being accurate, but there was something powerful and awesome that I got from it. I want to, just for those of you who did not see it, the movie takes place about 1,000 years after a cataclysmic event occurs on Earth, and Earth has to be abandoned, and humans go to another planet that they call Nova Prime. And while living on this planet, an alien nation called the Sekrel, what they want to do is they want to take over Nova Prime. Now, Will Smith is a general in the Ranger Corps that is set up to protect Nova Prime. And the alien nation called the Sekrel, they attack often, and they are, in fact, beginning to win the battle or win the war for taking over Nova prime, because the Sacrel had a secret weapon, and that secret weapon was called the Ursa. The Ursa, they were large, fierce, ugly, predatory creatures that hunted by sensing fear. And with this secret weapon called the Ursas, they were beginning to take over Nova Prime until General Cypher Rage, that's Will Smith, figured out how to suppress his fear. And when you suppress your fear, the Ursa could not sense you, could not find you, could not see you, did not know you were around. And so General Cypher Rage began to spread this knowledge on to his other rangers, and they began to beat back the Sacrel by destroying the Ursa. And the process that they used was called ghosting. Ghosting, which meant that they made a significant effort to dwell and put their whole self into the moment and did not sense anything else going on around them, and therefore did away with their sense of fear. And the thing that struck me about this was what Will said to his son in describing fear. And he said this: fear is not real. The only place fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may never exist. That is near insanity. And then he went on to say, danger is very real, but fear is a choice. And I said, now that's worth the price of admission. That's worth the price of admission. Danger is real, but fear is a choice. And Psalms 56:4 says this. It says, in God whose word I praise, in God I trust, I shall not be afraid. What can flesh do to me? Psalms 118:6 repeats the same thing. Hebrews 13:6 says it this way: we can confidently say, the Lord is my helper. I will not fear. What can man do to me? Fear is a choice. Danger is real. And as I reflect on that, I am clear that when I remind myself about who I am, I can decide to not be afraid. First of all, I am made by God, which means that I am made by the best. Doesn't get any better than that. Genesis 1:27 says that so God created man and woman in his image, and he blessed them, and he created them, and he said, be fruitful and multiply and refill the earth and manage the earth and exercise dominion and leadership over every living creature. So I am made by the best, and I am blessed for success. Say I'm made by the best. Say I am blessed for success. So now this brings me to this first major point, which is that everything that God made works, which means we were not made to fear and to fail. We were made for success because we were made by the best. And one thing I'm clear about, and that is that God does not make junk, mistakes, or excuses. God is an awesome God. Everything God made works. Everything. Mountains, the moon, the sun, it always comes up in the east and sets in the west. And I've said this a trillion times, and it never changes no matter what neighborhood you live in. Because you live out west doesn't mean the sun comes up in the west. It always comes up in the east and sets in the west. Because God is a God of order. Everything God made works, and it works well. It works perfectly. Rivers work, oceans work, corn works, collard greens work. Even oxtails work. At least they work for the ox. What you're doing with them, I don't know, but I know they work for the ox. Everything God made works. And if you were to apply that just to the human condition, just with your wonderful self sitting there, you are magnificently, fearfully, and wonderfully made by the God who only makes the best, because he is the best. Yeah, you should have been clapping more vigorously for that, because you are a product of the greatest manufacturer ever. You have 206 bones, 634 muscles, all of them working together. You're made by the best. 50 to 100 billion neurons with its trillions of synaptic connections, all firing one way or the other. You can sit right there, think one thing, say something else, move something different, and think and reflect on something totally different. You are magnificently and fearfully and wonderfully made by an awesome God, an awesome creator. You have a heart in the center of your chest that beats 60 to 70 beats per hour, per minute, 4,000 times an hour, 100,000 times a day, and it never misses a beat. That's an awesome thing. What else do you do 100,000 times a day and you never miss a beat? Because if it missed one beat, you know it. You know it. If it misses two, sayonara. You breathe 12 to 14 times per minute, 900 times an hour. You breathe 25,000 times a day, 25,000 gifts of life every single day. That is magnificent. If one person's blood vessels were connected, it would stretch between 75,000 to 100,000 miles. The circumference of the earth is only 25,000 miles. You could take one person's blood vessels and stretch them around the entire circumference of the earth. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. One for the Father, one for the Son, and one for the Holy Spirit. You are awesomely and magnificently made. Say, I'm blessed. You are made by the best, and you are blessed for success. There should be nothing that should have you afraid. Fear is a choice. That's your decision. Danger may be real, but fear is a choice. And so we are made, and on our back is the name of God. We are made by God. We are God's brand. We have God's name on us. And a brand and a name is important, because a company stands by its name. A name, it indicates ownership. It indicates authorship. A name indicates the skill and the work and the effort that went into making whatever the product is. A name reflects the character and the power in the brand. So that a name is important. There was a movie a little while back called American Gangster. Some of you may remember that. More people went to see that than After Earth. Denzel Washington played Frank Lucas. Cuba Gooding Jr. played Nicky Barnes, 2 drug lords in Harlem. And Nicky Barnes was taking the product of Denzel Washington or Frank Lucas, and he was cutting it and selling it for profit, but a diluted product. And Frank Lucas was upset about that, so he goes to Nicky Barnes's nightclub and sits down and says, now look, he says, now Nicky, I need to tell you this. A brand name means something. See, consumers, they rely on a brand name. They need to know that what they're getting is what they're getting. They want to know that if they're buying a Ford, they want to know that they're getting a Ford and not a Datsun. And my brand is Blue Magic. That was his brand. That's what he called his brand of heroin. My brand is Blue Magic, and it's a brand. It's a quality brand. It's like Pepsi. It's a brand. And then he made this concluding statement. He says, I stand by my brand. I guarantee my brand. And I don't want you buying my stuff and cutting it and selling it and calling it Blue Magic. You need to call it something else. Call it Red Magic, whatever. But don't call it Blue Magic, because it's not. Because I stand by and I guarantee my brand. And that's what God does. God stands by his brand. God made us, and God stands by us. We are made in the image and after the likeness of God. We are called by the name of God. If my people who are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face, then I will hear from heaven and forgive the sin and heal the land. We are called by the name of God. We are God's brand. We are God's name. And God's name is always blessed. In fact, the essence of God is blessing. God blesses his name. He blesses his brand. And so when I walk around, I should not be walking around in fear, because I know I'm blessed. Because I carry the name of God with me. And if I carry the name of God, if I'm made by God, if I'm made in God's image, I am blessed. No doubt about it. Say, I'm blessed. See, but you got to say it like you mean it. You got to say it like you know it, because you cannot say it half-heartedly. You got to, just like when Frank Lucas was talking to Nicky Barnes, Frank Lucas was serious, life or death. You either change that name or I'm going to change you. Now, if they can be that serious about heroin, you know you ought to be serious about declaring that the name of God, that the brand of God is on you. Say, I'm blessed. Should never be half-hearted with declaring that I carry the name of God. I am blessed, and I choose not to be afraid to do what it is that God has placed in me to do. I'm here not by accident. I'm here on purpose. And I have been blessed to achieve that purpose. People run in fear from what God has placed in them to do, because they're not clear about who they are. Well, I'm clear. You're looking at somebody who is blessed. And I'm not afraid to declare it to anybody, anywhere, anytime, anyhow. I don't get to be this cool not being blessed. I am blessed. Now, here's an interesting thing about God. What God does is God blesses in the beginning of a thing for the end of a thing. Now, this is important, Steve, because many times the trouble and the challenge and the trial and the tribulation comes in the middle. But God's people know I'm blessed in the beginning of a thing, and I'm blessed for the end of a thing, which means that God blesses us for the journey, blesses us for the process, as well as the end. I was given this picture during the summer when all of these wild fires and floods, the fires in California and other places up west, and the floods in Louisiana and a number of other places down in the mid-south. And I saw in my mind's eye a person standing in 4 to 5 feet of water in their house. Standing tall, shoulders back, head up, and declaring to the world and anybody who would listen, I'm blessed. Looking around, I'm blessed. I'm blessed. And I reflected on that because so often when we go through trouble and challenge and trial, rather than viewing what is happening to us as a lesson that's going to grow us, because life is a classroom, we view it as we are now being victimized by the circumstances of life. But in fact, if you're standing and you are alive and well in the 4 to 5 feet of water, indeed you are blessed. And there are people in here right now, because we all got issues. We all got challenges. We all have lessons to learn. We're all going through a classroom, and we're all experiencing some lesson somewhere, somehow, on something. Life is a journey. Growth is a journey. Learning is a journey. So what is your issue? And whatever it is, you ought to be standing in the midst of it and be saying, I am blessed. I'm blessed, and I'm blessed for success. And God will get you through it. So here's the second major point. First is everything God made work. Second is this. Everything God made has everything it needs to work. Would you turn to the neighbor on the right and on the left and tell them, you have nothing missing. You got it all. You got it all. The first law of thermodynamics in energy, the first law of thermodynamics says this. It says that in energy in the universe is neither created nor destroyed, but is constantly in the process of being transformed from one form to another. Say, I have what it takes. In 2 Kings 4, where the widow comes to the prophet Elisha and says, the creditors are coming to take my sons because, my husband who died, who made his transition, is now coming to collect. And so what the prophet says, well, is what do you have in your house? See, what do you have in your house? When the disciples on the side of the mountain, the day was far spent, thousands of people were still hanging on every word of Jesus, and the disciples came to Jesus and said, Jesus, we got to send these people away. So they got to get the Wendy's and McDonald's before they close, because we don't have enough food and we don't have enough money here to feed all these people. And Jesus said, no. You feed them. You feed them. What do we have here? Go see what we have right here. And then when the scouts came back from scouting the land there in the promised land to which the people of Israel had come to the edge, and the 12 came back, and Caleb and Joshua gave one report, and then the 10 were giving a report. The city is big, it's fortified, the giants live over there, and they're stronger than we are, and we saw ourselves as grasshoppers, and surely they saw us as grasshoppers. And Caleb quieted the people. Caleb said, listen, chill out. Chill. We are able to go up and get it. Let's go get it, and let's get it now. Always God starts with now and what you have in your house, because God knows what's in you. And God always knows that wherever you are and whatever you come to, He's already placed in you what you need to get through it. It's already there. It's already there. It's already there. Say, I have what it takes. And so fear comes from feeling inadequate to the circumstances and the situation. You ought not be feeling inadequate. You ought to know, if you believe in the God who made you, why would God make you inadequate and insufficient? You were made to handle whatever it is you need to handle. Whatever it was coming in your direction, God stands in the end and starts from the beginning. He knew it was coming when he made you in the first place. Before you were formed in your mother's belly, he knew what was coming in your direction. And so he placed in you what would be needed for you to get through the entire journey. He didn't put enough in you to make the halfway. He meant for you to make it all the way. Say, I have what it takes. And if we can get this in our spirit, then we will experience less fear, which only subtracts from our lives. You see, fear subtracts from life. Fear limits life. Fear restricts life. Tell your neighbor on each side, don't be afraid of the work. It works if you work it. You see, work is a four-letter word. Work is a four-letter word that scares a lot of people. People love stuff, they love things, but when you say you got to work, then they start running. Without work, nothing grows. Without work, nothing gets built. Without work, nothing is achieved. Without work, there's no progress. Without work, diamonds remain buried and undiscovered. Without work, dreams are not lived. Ideas lie dormant. Without work, gardens turn into a jungle. Without work, marriage descends into divorce. Without work, goals remain unachieved. You got to work, and it works if you work it. Without work, wellness descends into illness. Prosperity descends into poverty. Without work, excellence descends into averageness and poor. You got to work. Faith adds to life. Faith expands life. Faith enhances life. Faith enlarges life. If I paraphrase Emerson said, you either live by faith or you don't live at all. You either venture or you vegetate. And when you walk by faith, you do. When you walk by faith, you act. When you walk by faith, you behave. You cannot think your way out of something you behaved your way into. If you behaved your way into it, you must behave your way out of it. Clement Stone says you cannot think your way out of fear, you must act your way out of fear. And so we are challenged today to not choose fear. Our goals, many of us have been working on our goals for a long time. God wanted you to be clear about them. You had them before you came here. He wanted you to be clear about them. You've been working on them. And many of us have experienced a high level of frustration because we have not reached them. But be clear about this. Oftentimes when we are confronted with the largeness of the work, the largeness of the giants, the largeness of the fortification, the largeness of those forces that are standing us in and staring us in the face, oftentimes we run in fear. The Bible is full of examples of people running in fear from stuff that they could fight through faith. But we recognize this, that when you know you're made by the best, and you know you're blessed for success, and you know you're blessed in the beginning for the end, and you are blessed through. One thing is very clear, be clear about this now. When you are blessed, you are not blessed to be removed from the circumstances. The circumstances are going to come. You are not blessed to have the circumstances removed from your pathway. You are blessed to be able to get through whatever the circumstances are. That's the way God works. Say, I have what it takes. I'm made by the best. I'm blessed for success. And faith now is this. Faith, we know from the scriptures, is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith acts like a thing that is not so, like it is so, so that it might be so. Now, I'm reminded of, I was in Detroit a few years ago, flying to Chicago. And by accident, I just kind of looked down at my itinerary. I knew where I was going. I looked at the itinerary, and my itinerary said, leave Detroit at 4:30, arrive Chicago at 4:25. I said, somebody, my office made a mistake. My office made a mistake. So I read it again. Leave Detroit 4:30, arrive Chicago 4:25. It didn't look like a mistake, and so I kept reading it, and sure enough, it wasn't a mistake. Leave Detroit 4:30, arrive Chicago 4:25. And so that it was right. So what it was saying was, before I left, I was already there. Now, and I said, that's a picture of faith. That's what faith is all about. Before you leave, you're already there. And that's what God is calling for. Some people who will walk by faith. You live more life when you walk by faith. Your life is enhanced when you walk by faith. Your life is stronger, it's better, it's bigger, it's broader, it's wider, it's more of a blessing when you walk by faith. Everything around me said Detroit, Detroit Tigers, Detroit Lions, Detroit Red Wings, Detroit Pistons. And yet, though everything said Detroit, I was already in Chicago. But the bottom line is, though by faith I was already in Chicago, though I had not yet left Detroit, I still had to make the trip. You cannot avoid the trip. You're still going to have to make the trip. And when you're clear by faith that you're already there, that ought to give you the encouragement to know that you can make the trip. Because God says, in my hands, you're already there. Go on and make the trip. I made you. You're made by the best. You are blessed for the trip. You are blessed for success. You have what it takes. Go on and make the trip and reach your goal. God bless you.